Well, Ken, great to connect with you. I always enjoy our conversations and your knowledge about the mitochondria and oxidative stress. And so let's start by just kind of a recap of what the mitochondria are, why they're so important, and why mitochondrial breakdown or oxidative stress, how that can play a role in the development of chronic disease.
Well, mitochondria are little organelles in your cells. They probably started out as independent bacteria billions of years ago, but now they've integrated and they're the powerhouse of your cell. They give you 95% plus of all the energy that your cell needs, and usually that's as ATP. But they also do other things. They make pregnenolone, the precursor molecule for all your hormones, and they also make various other substances, usually a lot for RNA and DNA synthesis. So having healthy mitochondria is super critical. And most cells can have any from a few dozen to hundreds, depending on the type of cell they are and how much energy that cell produces. So healthy mitochondria are key to having good health.
Yeah, absolutely. And different cells have a different number of mitochondria. I know that there's a lot more mitochondria in our brain, for example, in the different neurons than in basically a typical muscle cell. Cardiac cell has more mitochondria than a typical muscle cell. Liver cells have more mitochondria. So when the mitochondria starts to become uh, damaged and senescent, oftentimes people will notice it with various symptoms, particularly with those symptoms associated with tissues of the body that are more mitochondrial dense. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there's some key antioxidants that function in the mitochondria and that keep it going. And of course, as we know, antioxidants that our body produces tend to drop as we age. And of course, there's CoQ10. We can supplement for that. There's glutathione. Now, there's some ways that we can actually supplement for glutathione these days. But the two key antioxidants that really there has been nothing to help with is superoxide dismutase, and that takes care of superoxide, the most damaging oxidative radical in catalase. And C60 is a superoxide dismutase catalase mimic. And so as you get older, your SOD catalase levels drop, and when you take C60, it replaces them. So, you should be doing your CoQ10, your glutathione, and C60 covers the other important two ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about what C60 is and why that plays a role here.
Oh, C60 is a molecule of 60 carbon atoms. If you look on the back of me, you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
It's actually shaped like a little soccer ball. And discovered in 1985, got a Nobel Prize in 1996 in chemistry. When they went testing for toxicity in the early 2000s, they found it actually, for instance, it almost doubled the lifespan of Wistar rats. Now they tend to be kind of a wimpy rat that usually dies of cancers. There was no cancers in the Wistar rats. But and then other studies came along, and one is on wild type mice, which is probably more characteristic of what we would be, right? Wild type humans, I would hope. And it increased the lifespan of the wild type mice by 11% and completely prevented cognitive decline during aging, which I think we would all like to have that.
For sure. So they were giving it to these mice and then had a control group. And then basically the ones that were taking a certain amount, a clinical dose of the C60, did not have the cognitive decline and they lived 11% longer. That's what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Yes, and so that's probably characteristic of what you could expect because it really is it's a really powerful antioxidant and it gets down the inflammation, which is really the most damaging thing that your body is experiencing.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And so, mitochondria have become, something that we're talking a lot more about in natural health. We look at them not only as producing energy, but also kind of a sensory system or a brain and nervous system of the cell where they can kind of increase or decrease their energy production based on the environment around them and also oxidative stress as well. And so how does C60, you mentioned it as being a key factor for reducing oxidative stress in the mitochondria. How does it differ from other antioxidants that are out there?
Well, one of the things is it actually has the capacity to recharge itself. It basically, it's a hollow molecule. It pulls positive hydrogen ions from the outer environment, and then that makes it positively charged. So it neutralizes oxidative radicals. Primarily, the only ones it really does is superoxide, the most damaging oxidative radical in the body, and the hydroxyl ion, which is the second most damaging oxidative radical in the body. And neither of those does the body use as signaling molecules. So C60 is unique that A lot of antioxidants like vitamin C or vitamin E or D, they've done studies and they're good up to a certain level, but above that level, they actually have negative effects because
Mm.
they interfere with the body's signaling mechanism, many of them which are oxidative radicals, like the nitrogen oxides or hydrogen peroxide. And there's a variety more based around sulfur, iron, and zinc. Well, C60 only interacts with the superoxide and the hydroxyl ion, and the body doesn't use those as oxidative radicals or as signaling molecules. So it has no toxicity. Virtually, they've done studies where they use 10,000 times the health beneficial dose. Still no toxicity from C60. So by C60 eliminating the two most damaging oxidative radicals in the body, especially in your mitochondria, that just improves health greatly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so superoxide dismutase is an enzyme that naturally works to regulate superoxide. But I've heard that that is kind of a rate limiting one. As people age, their superoxide dismutase or SOD production decreases. And so their ability to neutralize superoxide goes down. And so C60, you're saying, helps kind of fill in the gap there.
Yes, exactly. That's what it does. And it's also like superoxide dismutase or practically any other body's endogenous antioxidants. When they encounter an oxidative radical, it changes their structure. They kind of bind to it. And then you need a little ATP and some enzymes to reset them. Well, C60 resets itself all by itself. And it's a mimic of both of them. And it lasts somewhere between 4 to 10 days in the body. So it does need to be renewed. But as a mimic, it does the job of both of those. Doesn't need any of the body's chemistry, doesn't put a burden on the body of resetting itself. And so it's really an amazing antioxidant.
Absolutely. And so by reducing that oxidative stress, how does that impact somebody's health? Like, how does that bring down inflammation?
Well, the first thing you're going to notice when it goes in there, because the mitochondria, as we mentioned, they have their own DNA and they
Hmm.
don't want to get damaged. So when they don't have enough SOD or any other antioxidants, they actually turn down their energy production to prevent themselves from being damaged. Well, when they have enough
Yeah.
C60, they can turn their energy volume back on. So now you're getting more ATP. That's the energy molecule of your cell. And so that ATP will go throughout the cell and make all kinds of enzymes and various other activities happen in the cell that probably weren't happening before. And that's what people usually notice: better energy and mental focus when they take C60. So that's the key. And then that causes a cascade of other positive benefits because it also protects the endoplasma reticulum. And that's where the
Hmm.
proteins are made. So now your
Yeah.
proteins can be made without being damaged. And if you got all your, now your cell's just operating a whole lot more efficiently than it was before you took the C60.
Yeah, because when people are exposed to a lot of oxidative stress, these organelles become senescent or aged. And then over time, the whole cell becomes a senescent cell where it really isn't functioning well at all. And it's even sputtering out inflammatory compounds that are, in a sense, poisoning the cells around them. Can C60 act like a senolytic where it actually helps to get rid of these senescent zombie cells in the body?
Yes, it does, because most senescent cells, if you look at them, the DNA is usually damaged. And
Mm.
so and usually there's mechanisms like the P35 gene, 53 gene and various others to destroy those senescent cells. But a lot of cases that doesn't happen. So they just stay around. They're in the fermentation mode, which is like 1/20th as
Mm.
efficient as the oxidative mode. And they're just poisoning the cells around them. Well, what happens, C60 goes in those senescent cells and it restarts the mitochondria. And those mitochondria will send messages to the nuclear DNA. And if they don't get the right message back, which they won't in a senescent cell, it will cause the senescent cell they'll cause the senescent cell to basically go into apoptosis or programmed cell death. The mitochondria can do that themselves. And so that's one, and actually they've found that with research, C60 just wipes out huge numbers of senescent cells in the body. And then that stimulates the body to produce more stem cells. So people that take a lot of C60 over time, this doesn't happen overnight. This is a long-term effect of C60.
Mhm.
That's found some studies that have incredible levels of stem cells, as if they were decades younger.
Hmm. It's so interesting. And so basically, when the mitochondria are very senescent, they can't release or signal for the cell to undergo this kind of programmed cell suicide where it kills itself because it's, older and not functioning as well. So the cell just sits there becoming this zombie cell, right? And then the C60 comes in, kickstarts that mitochondria back up, and now it's able to signal to the nucleus and say, hey, like this cell needs to get turned over. And when we get rid of that cell, now we can replace it with a young stem cell that's more stress resilient.
Yes, that's correct. And we've actually found from it's anecdotal, but people have taken C60 for a long time actually have an increase in their telomere length. And it's not
Mm.
because any particular in the cells the telomere increased. It's what happened is the senescent cells, which almost always have very shortened telomeres, have been wiped out, and they've been replaced by stem cells, which have almost full telomeres. And so when you take that little swab in your mouth to look at the telomeres, you're not just looking at the telomeres of one cell. You're looking at tens of thousands or more. And so average telomere length in your body actually increases. So in a sense, you're actually getting younger when you use C60.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Now, what was your personal experience with C60 when you first found it?
Well, I was using as a radiation protectant in some fusion experiments, and the experiments were successful. But I kept using it afterwards. And 7 months after I started using it, I went in to see my optometrist, and my DRUs, or dry macular degeneration, which I've had for years, and was slowly progressing. I'd done the Zolutins and the Xanthins and all the other stuff, but it was slowly progressing, had completely disappeared. And my optometrist had never seen that happen in his many decades of practice. And you got to remember the retina, which is where you get your drusen, is happening, or your macular degeneration, is part of the brain. And so it's those cells that are just full of mitochondria. And so I
Hmm.
can hypothesize that, the mitochondria restarted in my retina, and that allowed the retina to heal itself.
Wow, yeah. So that was pretty remarkable when you noticed that. What was your reaction to that?
Well, I was pretty amazed. And in fact, in the meantime, my electrical engineer in the job, Gary, he had developed severe wet macular degeneration, probably
Mm.
because he had type 2 diabetes. And so I made a preparation of C60 and MCT oil because, as some of you out there may know,
Mm.
MCT, medium chain triglycerides, can be turned into ketones by your body, and that's flex fuel for your cells. So if you've got
Yeah.
glucose processing issue, taking MCT is really critical, and the C60 on top of that. So he took a tablespoon a day for 15 months, and his severe wet macular degeneration went completely away, and his type 2 diabetes went subclinical.
Wow, that's amazing. And so what kind of results now? Obviously now at this point, for 10 years you've been working with this for over 10 years, with your company, Shop C60. And so for over 10 years you've been seeing obviously lots of different people utilizing it. What kind of results are you guys seeing?
Oh, just all kinds of supposedly degenerative diseases just go away. And I think a lot of it's not, well, the degenerative diseases is caused by malfunctioning mitochondria. And
Yeah.
there's a variety. I mean, the mitochondria make just a vast variety of various substances in our cell, and depending on your different tissue type, they make it because it's got 3,000 genes. 3,000 genes of the mitochondria are in our regular DNA, and then there's like 47, I believe, in the mitochondria itself. And so they've got this thing going. So it's if you got healthy mitochondria, just all kinds of supposed things. I mean, the very first human study of mitochondria was they put it in a cream for Japanese women, and they found that it decreased lines and wrinkles in
Hmm.
Japanese women. And we know that probably was due to the increase in stem cells in the skin, which allows the turnover. So if you have more stem cells, then the underlying matrix below the skin is supported, and of course wrinkles would go away.
Yeah. So you guys are seeing those sort of cosmetic, benefits when it comes to aging in the skin, but also energy, mental clarity, I'm sure, like big things like that.
Oh,
And then, yeah. And then how about pain? Are you noticing people seeing improvements with pain levels?
oh yes, you'll see that. Yeah, people can take it in like within 20 to 30 minutes. You'll actually get a decrease in a lot of pain, and use topically on the skin, especially like in the hands, you can get a decrease in pain. Now, to get to some of the pain, like in your knees, actually, it's some of our customers discovered that on their own. They took our C60, depending on whichever type it is, and mixed it with DMSO, and that just took it way in to
Hmm.
get to your hip or your or deep into your knees. But that was actually discovered by our own customers.
Wow, that's interesting. And what would be the mechanism for the DMSO benefiting it?
Well, DMSO is an incredible solvent, and so if you got the C60, it'd take a while to get through the skin and deepen it, but with DMSO, it just pulls it all down quickly deep into
Mm.
your thing. And there's all kinds of other benefits that DMSO has, and that's one
Yeah,
thing I
it's
should
just so
point out.
far.
Yeah, C60 is not the magic pill. It's just one tool in the toolkit for good health. You've still got to eat healthy, drink clean water, get your sleep, proper supplementation, all of that stuff. It's just one tool, but and also don't forget the exercise. That's really important too.
Yeah, and the original scientists who discovered C60, they won the Nobel Prize for chemistry, I think in the 90s. Is that correct?
Yes, in 96. Actually,
Yeah.
they started with 5 of them. There was only 3 of them left, so that's why they got it so quickly. Usually 10 years to get a Nobel Prize is very rapid, but they figured they'd give it to them before they were all gone. But they didn't know about it. And the actual scientific name is Buckminster fullerene. And he
Yeah.
predicted that this molecule would be discovered in the late 1970s, and it would have amazing health benefits. And that was like dozens of years before that was actually discovered. So that's kind of one of those interesting mysteries.
So how did he make that prediction? So he made a prediction that this compound would be found, but he hadn't actually discovered it.
No, he didn't. He just figured that, well, he was the geodesic dome guy probably. And so he
Yeah.
just that was his thing, and so he could see that carbon had the potential to make these sorts of structures. And
Mhm.
but nobody had actually been. In fact, there's a really long story. Was very difficult. I mean, they literally had to make neon frost in a chamber, and then drop C60 on top of it to confirm that it existed. So yeah, it was quite the effort back in 1985 when Harry Kroto, Robert Smalley, and Richard Curl discovered C60.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Now, you guys have it in oil blends. Why is when you take C60, when you supplement with it, why is it important to get it in an oil?
Oh yeah, because C60 is non-polar. It's circular, right? So it doesn't have any poles on it. So it only dissolves in a non-polar substance. Oil is non-polar. Water, for instance, is polar, so it has no solubility in water. And so we put it in, and also it's the right oils you want to use. Obviously there's some. It's kind of we have the Goldilocks of oils. We have an avocado oil, olive oil, and MCT coconut oil. And our gummies, which a lot of people like, those are in whole
Mhm.
coconut oil. And so, because obviously we don't want to put it in seed oils, right? Those omega
Yeah.
rich ones like, for instance, canola oil,
Yeah.
or corn oil. Those are really unhealthy for you. They cause massive amounts of inflammation. And really you need to get all the seed oils out of your diet as much as possible to help that.
Hmm.
But then there's other ones like fish oil and hemp oil and stuff that perhaps are really good. They have really high omega-3 levels, but they go rancid really quickly.
Hmm.
So we've kind of found the Goldilocks where we have healthy oils that last a long time, and of course everybody knows about the Mediterranean diet, and of course avocado oil is also kind of in that zone, and then the benefits of MCT, as I mentioned before, turn into ketones in your body. So athletes like that a lot. We've had some mid packers go to champions in their field using our products.
Yeah, for sure. I take it with the MCT oil. That's my favorite. And also the olive oil as well. Now, is there a difference in the overall dosage depending on the oil?
Yeah, well, avocado oil and olive oil, they have about the same amount in them because they both
Hmm.
have 16 chain triglycerides. Uh, now our coconut oil has a little bit less. It has 16, but our gummies, it's pretty much the same concentration. But the problem, MCT is a distillate of coconut oil. It's got 6 to 8 chain carbon lengths, so it holds a little bit less, about 40% of what the other oils hold. But then it has the benefits of the MCTs. So for people with glucose processing issues, or athletes, or people that want to stay in ketosis, because that's an
Hmm.
important thing. Because if you're doing, intermittent fasting, which I do, and I
Yeah.
recommend people to do it, it improved my health more and dropped weight more than anything else I have ever done, and that's why I continue to do it. And so if you take, your MCTs in your coffee in the morning, you're going to still be in ketosis, which is kind of the whole point of intermittent fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate of intermittent fasting. That was transforming for my life and my health as well. And I'll tell you, C60 is one of the most powerful supplements I personally have taken. I really noticed that my energy, my brain health, my immune system has functioned a lot better since taking it. And it's really easy to use because it's just basically an oil form. What I personally do is I actually put it in a smoothie. That's typically how I take it. But if I don't have a smoothie that day, I usually just take it kind of on the side, like a teaspoon or a tablespoon. I personally like to take it with a meal, but from what I understand, you can take it with or without food. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And also, I take it. Usually, I just glug the bottle, And the other
Yeah.
thing is, but then also, I'll take at the same time. I'll take like vitamin D and vitamin
Yeah.
E and those fat
Fat
soluble
soluble.
vitamins because that's what you want to do. You want to take an oil with the fat soluble vitamins, so it increases your absorption and and that's like I take vitamin D every day, and a whole bunch of and vitamin K, of course, that goes with it,
Yep.
and a whole variety, of course, magnesium. Every now and then a little bit of iodine, and they're just hard. We have the
Yeah, you
SAD
you and
diet.
me, we're biohackers. We're
Yeah,
longevity
Yeah.
this is what we're about. We're about optimizing our performance. I always, I was an athlete growing up, and now I always say, I'm an occupational athlete. That means, I
Yeah.
may not be competing on a sports field, but I want to have my best energy, mental performance, be able to do everything, that I want to do at the highest possible level. I know you're like that as well. So we take a good amount of supplements.
Yes.
But yeah, C60 is a key part of our stack for longevity and optimal health. And so when somebody's looking for like a good brand of C60, what are some things that they need to look out for? Because there are, other brands out there. What are the best practices?
Well, part of it, what we do as part of our process in the bottles and also sometimes on the outside, we have a QR code on all the products we produce, and so it goes to third-party testing. So that's probably the first thing. So you know it's safe and effective. That's, I mean, third-party testing on anything, if you can get it, is really good
Yeah.
idea. And so what you want to do, first off, you want to make sure it's the right type of C60. We use 99.99% sublimated C60. Sublimation is a process. It's like evaporation, distillation, right? So it makes a really high-quality product. There's a lot of industrial C60 because there's industrial uses for C60, and they use methylbenzene, also known as toluene, which is actually a rather nasty chemical that's a known carcinogen. So you generally want to avoid that. So just look for sublimated C60 and 99.99% purity, because if it's anything less than that, it's probably toluene. So, and then also the oils you put it in, we kind of have healthy oils, those nice Goldilocks oils, and of course, third-party testing. And those are basic the things. We've actually tested all the competitors out there, and about 40% of them are complete bogus. So you're already down some, and so you have to be careful when you're buying a C60 product.
Yeah,
To
I
know
mean,
what you're getting.
in the supplement industry in general, you want to look for products that are professional grade or third party tested
Mm.
for sure, because I mean, there's so much scam out there. And I think something like like 2/3 of the supplements that are sold on Amazon are either not efficacious, meaning they don't have the actual clinical dose that they say they have, or they're not pure, right? They're loaded with heavy metals, different toxins, different filling agents that are damaging, and so really really important. And so the transparency that your company provides, is something that anybody can check and see and make sure that that batch is
Mhm.
is pure and effective. And so I think that's really key.
Yeah, and we use all organic products
Yeah.
in making
Yeah.
it.
So
Yeah,
therefore, you're not going to get the pesticides, herbicides,
yeah,
things like that, that could be in them. Like if you were using a non-organic olive oil, for example, or
yeah.
something along those lines, it could be laced with pesticides or herbicides. And so,
And
yep.
also, it's a farm source because you got to be careful with olive oils,
Yeah.
especially. They have a habit of cutting them with cheaper oils,
True.
and
Seed
so
oils. Yeah.
yeah, so you just have to be careful on that one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And what should the dose that somebody takes if they want to see results? What should be like their daily dose of the C60?
Well, it's really a matter of weight and age.
Hmm.
See, if I was maybe in my 30s, I could get along maybe with a teaspoon, but I'm not, so it's more like a tablespoon and a half. Basically, as you get older, you need more C60 because those antioxidants, SOD and catalase, are going down quicker, and so the more you need. But for, so it's basically, or if you're really big, you need a little bit more, but probably more than a tablespoon and a half is about the max that you'd ever need. And as you're younger, it's less. And of course, for pets and stuff, we have on our website we actually have a calculator because we have a little for the pet stuff we have droppers. So obviously a Chihuahua would need less than a Great Dane.
Yeah, so this is a great product as well for pets, and they can use that. So again, based on weight, age, perhaps overall health status, like somebody that maybe, for example, has type 2 diabetes versus somebody that's more metabolically healthy. The person with type 2 diabetes, would they benefit from taking a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. They would, and also, but even if you're not taking our product with the C60 and the MCT oils, as somebody with a glucose processing issues, MCT is really a good idea to be taking because
Yeah, for sure.
it gives you that flex fuel for your body, and then your cells don't crash and burn because they're starving for energy.
Yeah, 100% agreed on the MCT oil. But the C60 also will obviously help with
Yeah.
upregulating all those mitochondria, getting rid of all those senescent. When somebody has type 2 diabetes, I mean, they're loaded up with these senescent mitochondria and these overall senescent cells that are not able to burn fat effectively for fuel, respond to insulin well. So we want to start to eliminate those and get kind of that proper messaging back and get good stem cell production, just like Ken explained earlier. C60 plays a critical role with that.
Yeah, anecdotally, we have a lot of people with type 2 diabetes and other things like that getting much better. That's anecdotal, of course. And
Yeah.
also, we found in our studies that 88% of our customers find an increase in mental clarity and energy when
Mm.
taking our products. So we did a science study on that. So
Yeah,
that's what
that's
they
really
wrote.
good. That's really good. One of the things people will say is that they don't feel like there's enough human studies on C60, which I guess you could say for like any supplement. There's probably not enough. There are some, but human studies can be very costly. But what are some of the human studies that are out there on C60, and what have you seen with that?
As you mentioned, there aren't very many. There's the facial one. Of course, there's a lot of human cell studies. There's
Mm.
obviously a lot of ethical things you can't be, testing people like you test
Yeah.
like rats or mice. But done a lot of human cell studies where they'll take human nerve cells. In fact, that's one of the ones we often have in our that we talk about. That why did they completely prevent cognitive decline during aging in the mice? And they found they took human nerve cells, they put them in various test tubes. And then, there's the controls that don't get C60, the ones that get C60, and then they expose them to a variety of toxins. And the cells that have C60 resist those toxins. And also they found human cells that have C60 resist UV radiation damage. And in fact, I was taking it, protection. They did a study where they gave one set of rats C60, the other set of rats didn't. They hit them with a fatal dose of radiation. The C60 rats live where the control group died. And radiation makes oxidative radicals, and of course, C60 is excellent at getting rid of oxidative radicals, so it saved those rats' lives.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really interesting. Now, one I guess you could say drawback that people will tell me is that they'll say, I really want to get the C60, but it's expensive. It's more expensive than a lot of other supplements out there. Why is that? What is, with the manufacturing process, things like that, why is it a more costly, or I guess you could say a higher priced supplement?
Well, 99.99% C60, the sublimated, the pure stuff, is more expensive by weight than gold. That's just
Yep.
because of the processing method that it does. We've developed
Hmm.
new methods that probably would make it a lot cheaper, but we haven't been able to actually build a plant to do that. But the way it's currently done, that's just the way it is. I mean, how much value is your health? That's really what it is, and
Yeah.
it's just the nature of C60. And as time goes by, there'll be new production methods. But the way it is now, that's how it is.
Yeah, for sure. I always say, the most expensive supplement is the one that doesn't work. And so, the supplements that work are worth their weight, and so, to ultimately to optimize our overall health, you really can't put a price tag on your health, your energy, your ability to thrive and what that means for, all the people around you and for yourself, right? And your life experience. And so, for me, C60 is a no-brainer. It's something I recommend for people, without a doubt. But yeah, it would be great if obviously we could create that
Yeah,
plant and start bringing down the
yeah,
cost of it for sure.
yeah. It just
Yeah.
takes investors and time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, guys, you can also get 15% off. Just use the coupon code Jockers when you go to shopc60.com. Check out their various products. Again, I'm a huge advocate. I like the olive oil as well as the MCT oil. You should be using MCT oil anyways. And so why not take it with the C60? So go ahead, check that out. You can use that coupon code Jockers again when you go there. And Ken, any last words of inspiration or anything that we missed that you'd like to cover here?
Oh, we do have other things on our website. We also have a cookbook for C60.
Yeah.
Obviously it's carbon, so you can't carbonize it. But any boiling liquids don't hurt C60 at all. So if you can integrate it into your foods, and of course you could put it on a salad dressing because it is olive oil. So there's various ways to integrate C60 into your diet
Mm.
in delicious, interesting ways.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. You guys made a cookbook with it, so you can actually be utilizing it for various recipes. So you don't actually have to take the tablespoon or whatever it is. You can put it in different recipes. Like I said, I like to put it in my smoothies. I just usually have an avocado in there. I've got frozen organic berries. We get grass-fed raw milk from our local farmer. Then I put in some good protein powder, grass-fed whey protein, as well as like a collagen bone broth protein. and throw my little C60 in there as well as some creatine, and it makes a great post-workout protein shake. And this is big because taking a lot of antioxidants after exercise is actually like directly after exercise is actually not advantageous for building strength and resilience in your muscle tissue because you actually want some level of inflammation. But C60, from previous conversations, you were telling me that C60 doesn't have that same effect, that you can take C60 shortly after exercise and still get the benefits of the stress of the exercise.
Yeah, that's because C60, the oxidative radicals that C60 interacts with are not signaling molecules and are the most dangerous and the most damaging. And so they just doesn't, one, for instance, is superoxide. When your mitochondria are really cranking out when you're exercising, you can put out 100 times more superoxide than normal. And what happens when it'll just overwhelm your SOD levels. And then that superoxide will form with nitrogen oxides in your cells, and then it becomes peroxynitrite, which then goes out and causes damage. That's what causes DOMS, that delayed onset muscle soreness. So when
Yeah.
people take C60, it reduces the DOMS, and so you have quicker workout. But people take C60, you can lift longer, run farther. As I mentioned before, we've had some athletes and horses become champions in their field using C60.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, two big things. Like for me, I'm 43 and I'm working out 6 days a week, real intense. I've got a home gym here, and I find that I recover a lot faster. Two main things I use C60, and I also use peptides. I use BPC 157, TB4 frag. It's called the Wolverine stack. So that kind of combination I feel like is really powerful if you want to recover faster, so you get better gains. And really be able to thrive, and really any sort of athlete out there that wants to optimize their performance, I would highly recommend those. And they also, double as like it's going to reduce pain in your joints, reduce pain, throughout your body, and just in general, again, optimizing your overall health status. And so really good stuff. Ken, thanks again for your time and your expertise here with C60. Guys, check it out, shopc60.com. You guys also have like a website where you have all the research. I remember from the past looking at that. Can you tell us how people can look at the links for all the various research studies?
Yeah, that is whatisc60.org. And there, because we can on our website, we can only post human studies because obviously animal studies aren't 3-letter agencies say they aren't relevant. So with whatisc60.org is a 501c3, and it's supported by several C60 companies. And you can go there and you can learn all about C60. And it's also important, only dissolved C60 has benefits. Like particles of C60, they have no benefits. So you got to be careful. There's a lot of people that sell like C60 in charcoal or something like that. Well, it's particles of C60. Your body can't actually absorb those. And so all of that is at whatisc60.org.
Yeah, that's good to know. And you guys also have a skincare line as well. So with the human study talking about how it reduced fine lines, wrinkles, things like that. So you have a skincare product as well with the C60.
Actually, we have several, but one
Yeah.
is an anti-gravity serum, and that is Jess, our CEO. She went and found her favorite serum, and we had it back engineered, and then of course with the C60 base, and so that really helps the lines and wrinkles. Then we also have a youth renewal eye cream, and that has like the copper peptides in it, because you know how that's sensitive underneath your eyes and stuff, and the sides of your eyes and stuff. So you use that there, and it has the copper peptides and a whole bunch of other good things for skin health. And so it can kind of, it's been shown in scientific studies to reduce lines and wrinkles.
Yeah, fantastic. Really great stuff. Ken, thanks again so much for your time, guys. Check it out, shopc60.com. Use that coupon code Jockers to save 15% off. Ken, be blessed. Always great. Always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you.